All right, here is our video on stoichiometry, but we're doing grams to grams conversions in this video. So far in class, we've learned how to go between moles and grams, right? And that's using the molar mass of some substance. All right, and we just set this equal to, we get 1 mole of something is equal to some number of grams of that same thing. And where do we look for that? Well, we look at the periodic table. Periodic table. And I just like to round to the tenths because it just makes it easier. If you were to be doing a lab or something where you need something more specific, then you can take all of the decimal points, but I just like the tenths. It's easier. Then we looked at from moles to moles. From moles to moles. So how do we go using a chemical reaction? How do we go from moles to moles of something? And that's from this thing called the mole ratios, which the other word for that is coefficients. Right? The other word for mole ratios is coefficients. Okay. And we'll start the video by doing a practice problem of that. But let's take a look at this also now, right? Between moles of B and grams of B, let's say we converted from moles of A to moles of B. Well, we could if we wanted to. We could convert from moles to B to grams of B because that's using just the same exact thing, the molar mass. Okay. So we have all the tools that we need to put this together, to go from grams of one substance, use our molar mass to get to the moles of that substance, use a reaction and the coefficients to get to moles of some other substance in the reaction, and then use the molar mass to get down to the grams. We could do that step by step by step, but this video will show you how to do this in one step overall. And it's just combining everything we've learned so far. I know I've talked about and I've talked about this in class before, but the stoichiometry unit is the exact same process over and over and over. And we kind of talked through this process. It is these 7 steps right here. All right, you write your unknown question mark blank equals, and then you fill in your given. What do you start with? You make some train tracks. Then you bring your units down to the next part and then look at the train map. Stack things that are equal. And the train map is just this over here. Stack things that are equal. Well, I tell you something like 1 mole equals blank grams. And that's the molar mass. Or mole ratios, you would say some number of moles of A is equal to some number of moles of B. That's what you'd say there. That's what's equal. So you stack things that are equal. Next up, cancel units that are on top and on bottom. I have this note in here, repeat steps 4 through 6 until whatever you have left, your units remaining, is equal to your unknown. That's how you know when you're done with the problem. And then number 7 is just find your answer. Make sure you include your units. You multiply everything on top, divide by everything on the bottom. Let's take that process into a chemical reaction. So we'll look at this one right down here. This phosphorus plus diatomic oxygen turns into P2O5, diphosphorus pentoxide. Okay, number 1, balance the reaction. All right, we can do that. Okay, so first of all, I'm looking at 1 phosphorus, 2 phosphorus, so we need a 2 over here. Then let's take a look at oxygen. Well, I have 2 oxygens and 5 oxygens. Is there any way to multiply 2 into 5? No, there isn't. So what we'll do, right, we take the subscripts and we switch them to become the coefficients if we can't multiply them ever. So we get 5 and 2. So now there's 5 O2s and 2 O5s, 10 each. Oh, but what else did this 2 also change? This 2 also changed the phosphorus. So we no longer have 2 phosphoruses. How many do we have? We have 2 times 2, we have 4. Okay, so there's our reaction right there. 4, 5, 2. All right. So number 2, how many moles of O2 reacts with 4 moles of P? Okay. So we're looking at now how many moles. So that's our first step, right? Unknown, how many, question mark, moles of what substance? Of O2. That's our unknown. Okay, then our step 2 was givens. What are we given? Well, we say, the problem says we start with 4.0 moles of P, of phosphorus. Step 3, that's our train tracks. Choo-choo. Step 4, it says bring units down. So we take whatever these units are, and we just bring them down. So moles of P. Step 5 now says see the train map. Okay, there's our train map right up there. Stack things that are equal. Stack things that are equal. Well, we're going from moles of one thing, moles of phosphorus, and I'm asking about moles of another thing, moles of oxygen. So we're going from moles of A to moles of B, which means what we stack here will have to be according to this. So some number of moles of phosphorus equals some number of moles of oxygen. So we get blank moles of phosphorus, blank moles of P equals blank moles of O2. Well, where do we get these numbers? Well, I tell you right here, from the balanced equation, it is the coefficients. So it is 4 moles of P, because 4 is our coefficient for P, and 5 moles of O2. 5 is our coefficient for O2. All right. So we know that there are 4 moles of phosphorus, and we stack what it's equal to, 5 moles of O2. Remember, I have you put this down here. I have you bring your units down first so you know whether you are going to have 5 moles O2 on top or on bottom. So you giving moles of phosphorus down on the bottom, that shows us automatically that the 4 goes on the bottom because 4 goes with moles of phosphorus and 5 goes with moles of O2. Okay, so we stack things that are equal. Step 6 then was cancel units top and bottom. Cancel units top and bottom. Okay, so we canceled moles of P because that's on both top and bottom. Now this is kind of our loop right here. Repeat steps 4 through 6 until units remaining equals unknown. Well, what units do we have remaining? We have moles of O2. A slightly different color for this highlighter. Moles of O2 remaining. What units are unknown? Moles of O2. Wonderful, that matches. So that means we are done. That means we are done, and we can set our equal sign. All right, multiply everything on top, divide by everything on bottom. So that means 4 times 5 divided by 4. Let's get our calculator out here. If it wants to turn on, there we go. So 4 times 5, multiply everything on top, and then divide by everything on bottom, divided by 4. That gives us 5. All right, so our answer is 5 moles, and it's whatever unit we had left, which should be the same as our unknown unit, 5 moles O2. All right, so that's how many moles of O2 reacts with 4 moles of P. Which, that does kind of make sense, right? 5 moles of O2 for 4 moles of P. Well, that's just our coefficients. So that does make sense. That's like if I had some more and I said, how many graham crackers do you need for 1 marshmallow? You would say 2, because that's our simplest ratio that we have. Okay. We are now going to take this a step further and say how many grams of O2 react with 2 moles of P. How many grams of O2 react with 2 moles of phosphorus? All right, same exact process, but this time, right? We start with moles of something, and we're looking for how many grams of something else. On this one, I should circle 2 moles of P. We start with moles of P and we end with grams of O2. So if we look at our train map, we start with moles of one thing, and I'll erase my highlights so we don't get confused. We start with moles of one thing. We start with moles of phosphorus, and it turns into grams of O2. So we start with moles of one thing, go to grams of another. This means we're going to have to go from moles of A to moles of B, and then from moles of B, go to grams of B. So we'll have to take this whole process from moles of A down to grams of B. But guess what? It is this exact same set of 7 steps. Everything we do in this unit, everything we do in stoichiometry when you're converting units is exactly this process. It is exactly this process. All right. So, how many grams of O2 react with 2 moles of P? Well, first thing we do, write our unknown. Question mark, and it's how many grams of O2. So grams O2. That's our question mark. All right. That's our unknown. Now equals. Now we write our givens. So what do we start with? Well, we start with 2 moles P. Okay, step 3, train tracks. Choo-choo. Step 4, bring units down. So we have moles of P up top. We'll bring down moles of P down there. Okay, step 5, stack things that are equal, but take a look at our train map. So at our train map, we start at moles of A. We're at moles of phosphorus. Now we have to get to moles of B. So we have to stack things that are equal. Blank moles of A equals blank moles of B. So in this case, we're going to have to run between oxygen, O2, and phosphorus, P. So I'll just do this on the side over here. Blank moles of, and we start with phosphorus, equals blank moles, and we're trying to get to O2. Well, this is just like before, right? We use our reaction. So I'm trying to position this so you can see it all. We use our reaction to find what these numbers are. So what's the coefficient of phosphorus? Is 4. So that goes there. What's the coefficient of O2? 5. So that goes there. All right, so then we stack things that are equal. We know that 4 moles of P is equal to 5 moles of O2. We know that because of this setup right there. Okay. Step 6, cancel units, top and bottom. So moles of phosphorus is on top and bottom. We can cancel those. Now we're trying to come out of this loop here. Repeat steps 4 through 6 until units remaining equals our unknown. So we have to check, do our units left equal what we're trying to get to? Well, what units do we have left? We have O2, moles of O2. What units are we trying to get to? Grams of O2. So that means they do not match. We aren't done. So we have to add another train track. Okay, and this is the first time we've done this. We have to add another train track. So I should probably make this loop go for steps 3 through 6. Because we have to add another train track every time. Every time we have to repeat this, we have to add another train track. So repeat steps 3 through 6. All right, so we added another train track. Well, what was the next step? Step 4, bring units down. So moles of O2, because we have moles of O2, but we're trying to get grams of O2. So we have moles of O2, we bring O2 down. Next up, stack things that are equal. Take a look at our train map. We're going from moles of B to grams of B. Stack things that are equal. Well, we know that 1 mole equals some amount of grams. So 1 mole, and this is, right, we're at O2 now. 1 mole of O2 is equal to some number of grams of O2. And what goes in that space? Well, it is the molar mass. Okay, so that means we need to look at our periodic table. But oxygen, right, there's 2 oxygens. So we need for oxygen, we need 2 times whatever the periodic table says, which is 15.999. And this is why I like to round to the tenths. That just turns into 16.0. 16. So 2 times 16 gives us 32 grams. So that's the molar mass of oxygen, is 32 grams. Okay. So we know that 1 mole is equal to 32 grams. 1 mole is equal to 32 grams. So we stack things that are equal. We know 1 mole. I know the 1 goes on bottom because we already put moles on bottom. 1 mole is equal to 32 grams of O2. Okay, so that was step 5, stack things that are equal. Step 6, cancel units top and bottom. Well, now we have moles of O2 and moles of O2. Now we're trying to see, can we get out of this loop? Can we get out of repeating steps 3 through 6? So do our units remaining, do those match? Do our units remaining, do those match our unknown? Well, we have grams of O2 and we're looking for grams of O2. Wonderful. So we are done. Equals. And we multiply everything on top, divide by everything on the bottom. All right, so I'll get my calculator pulled up here. Multiply everything on top. We have 2 times 5 times 32. And then divide by everything on bottom means divided by 4 divided by 1. That's why I mean divide everything on the bottom, because we divide this 4 and we divide the 1. Now we can just punch in equals. All right, so we get 80. So we have 80 is our final answer. 80, and this is in terms of whatever units we had right here, grams of O2. All right, there's our answer. So that's how we go from grams, or from moles of one thing to grams of another thing. But what if we now go from grams of one thing, so grams of O2, now we have grams of P. So instead of going moles to grams, and I'll erase the highlights here again just so we don't get confused. Now instead of moles to grams, now we start with grams. We are told that we start with 46.5 grams of P, and we want to turn that into grams of O2. So 46.5 grams of P, and we need to end with grams of O2. So we have to start with grams, convert it to moles, then go from moles, convert it to other moles, then go from those moles, then we can convert it to those grams. Okay. Let's do this. Same 7-step process. Same exact process. So we've got, start with our unknown, right? Question mark, and how many, what are we looking for? Grams of O2. Grams O2 equals. And then our givens, what do we start with? We start with 46.5 grams of phosphorus, of P. Step 3, train tracks. Choo-choo. Step 4, bring units down, grams of P. Step 5, stack things that are equal. Well, we're going from grams to moles, which means we've got to go with this molar mass conversion. So we need 1 mole of phosphorus is equal to whatever the molar mass is, will be our grams of phosphorus. I'll scroll up to the periodic table so we can find phosphorus, and there it is. 30.974. Again, I like to round to the tenths, so this would be 31.0. So this gives us 31.0 grams of phosphorus. Okay, then we stack things that are equal. So 31 grams, and then is equal to 1 mole of phosphorus. Our next question there. So now we stack things that are equal. So cancel units top and bottom. Grams of phosphorus is on top and bottom. Now we ask if we can get out of this loop of steps 3 through 6. Do our units left equal our units that we're looking for? No, they do not. Moles of phosphorus, grams of O2, not the same thing. So we repeat our process. Choo-choo, starting with those train tracks. All right, bring units down, moles of P. Now stack things that are equal using our train map. Well, we're at moles of P now, so we've made it here. We've made it here. Now we need to get over to the next one, to moles of B. Well, what do we use? We use the coefficients. So moles of one thing and moles of another thing. Well, we're trying to get from phosphorus to oxygen. From phosphorus to oxygen. So we need to know how many moles of phosphorus equals how many moles of O2. And we get those numbers from the balanced reaction. All right, and that is what this train map says. We get those numbers from the balanced reaction from the coefficients. So I see 4 phosphoruses is 5 O2s. So 4 phosphoruses, 4 moles phosphorus equals 5 moles O2. Okay, so moles of P we get 4, and then on top we get 5 moles of O2, 5 moles O2. All right, so we stack things that are equal. Step 6, cross out things top and bottom. Moles of phosphorus is on top and bottom. Now we check, do the units we have equal the units we want? Moles of O2 and grams of O2, are those the same? No, they're not. So we repeat our process again. Step 3, train tracks. Choo-choo. Step 4, bring down units. Moles O2. Step 5, stack things that are equal. Well, now we're trying to get from moles. Okay, we successfully made it to moles of O2. From moles of O2, now we have to get to grams of O2. And how do we do that? We do that with the molar mass, right? 1 mole equals some number of grams. So 1 mole of O2 is the substance we're working with, is some number of grams of O2. Well, oxygen, if you remember from earlier, oxygen, when we take 2 times it, oxygen is 16 each. And you could find that from the periodic table. Oxygen, 15.999. So 16 oxygen, or 16 is the mass of a single oxygen, just rounded to the tenths. But we have 2 of them, right? It's O2, which tells us it is 32 grams. Okay. Oh, excuse the bell. 32 grams is 1 mole. So 1 mole equals 32 grams of O2. Grams of O2. All right, we are almost done. So cancel units top and bottom, moles of O2. Now, do our units left equal our unknown grams O2, grams O2? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So now we can set it equal. Now we can say equals and go on to step 7. All right, so step 7 says multiply everything on top, divide by everything on bottom. Okay, there's a lot of things this time. 46.5 times 1 times 5 times 32. That's everything on top. And then we divide by everything on the bottom. So divided by 31, divided by 4, divided by 1. And if we set equals, okay, we get 60. I get 60 as our answer. So 60, and it's whatever units we have, grams O2. All right, that's our process for doing these all. It is exactly the same as what we've been doing. Now it's just, instead of 1 problem at a time, now we're doing 1, 2, 3 steps in a row. But remember, it is the exact same set of steps, exact same process as everything we've been doing. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in class.